Chayam
Mi Sanje Che Dang Su Je Chana La Chan Ju Ba Du Dan Ne Je Da Gi Ji Yin Je Ve So Nan Je Zhe La Ban Je Chen Je De Ba Sanje Che Dang Su Je Chana La Chan Ju Ba Du Dan Ne Je Da Gi Ji Yin Je Ve So Nan Je Zhe La Ban Je San Je Zhe Ba Shu San Je Che Dang Su Je De Na La Chan Ju Ba Du Dan Ne Je Su Je Da Zhe La Ban Je San Je Zhe Ba Zhou La Dang La Me Me Dang Mang Ji Hong Bo Da Jie Jun La Su Chu 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 La Xie Hua Xie Hua Na San Je Sun Pa Ru De Xi Xin De Wei Ju De De Xi Yu De Me Jin Jin Ne De Re Jie Jie Re De Wei Jie Jin De Re Jie Sa Yu De Wei Ju Ba Jin Jin Te Ba De La Chuo Lu Se Jie Gu Hai De La Bian Nian Jia Xian Xia Su Zhe Yin Me Dang An Bei Dan Ne La Ba Tu La Tu Wei Sun Ye Jie Na Ma La Ye Ga Dan Lu Dan Ni Jin Ga Zhu Bo Ta Dan Tu zhu wa gun jin zha na ji sa ba tam jie ge du da ge che den du o la su da ani pa jin du ga su ani ji den ten zhu chao la tu men bei ti ba ni wo da du bang wa cha tu jia ti ba nin ji rang xin qin xian bei shi ro ji rang xin ani tai la zhu chen ni o song wa na xin yi chen ni是吧？가서 직된 돈을 줘라 투면배 쓰간다 가르친 거래서 랑 시대라니 지부 시대 되니 지 끝나 랑데 라니 안에 타바 되니 그 로제 안에 나도 가서래 타바 되니 랑 로제데 안에 세바 타다 코와 코인데 와타자 매바위 루다 돈네 안에 탑인데 와라 이 침박이 아니 가서래 타바터비 치도 아니 라와섬라 아니 출신도 라네 라네 아니 차와도지 그 동안 여와 시위 니시 토바르지 이나양 아니 긴세바다 긴세바야 초려와 연된 지주관이야 초려와 잠인바 대대 인상 제사바데 내 처럼 되니 아란데 현대 니서자 마도 안에 현대 좀 봐.我대인상 윤전 대다게 안에 년랑 다좀 받더라. 지된 돈을 줘라. 투면배. 아니 라니 지부 아니 동안 여러 시민이 시타와데. 어디 특별히 어디 다도 방와 차 순거래. 그래서
here there's a verse which says that one should examine the two vehicles, that is the greater vehicle and the lesser vehicle. And examining the lesser vehicle specifically, if you look at the way in which it develops, that is, the person first develops an understanding of their own suffering by seeing that samsara in general, that is, all of the forms of rebirth, even the pleasant kinds of rebirth that one can obtain within samsara, even if one is born as a human and a god and experiences incredible pleasure and so forth, that all of this entirety of samsara is like a pit of burning fire. And when you recognize samsara as being like that, you develop then the desire, wish to be free from it, liberation from that condition of being involved in samsara, which is like a heap of or pit filled with burning embers. You develop that kind of intention to achieve liberation, and then if you actualize, but if you do so just thinking of your own aims, your own freedom from that kind of condition, then you develop the wish to achieve your own liberation, and if you actualize that liberation, then you've achieved the state of arhat-ship, the freedom from samsara in its entirety. But that kind of liberation is only partial. It's not something, that kind of liberation doesn't complete your own aims because in terms of the qualities that you've developed in the course of developing the path, you've only produced sort of a portion of the good qualities that are possible to produce. And then likewise, because because you're not primarily concerned with the sufferings of others, the liberation you accomplish is simply your own individual or personal liberation, and is not complete in that respect. So even the achievement of arhatship is limited in that regard. So therefore, if you compare that kind of achievement that one accomplishes through the lesser vehicle with the greater vehicle, then there's no comparison whatsoever.
Oh yeah, 今天同志按了同面呗，提把你我打到半瓦钱儿，那提把你我得让个团怎么着蛮多，那现就300没结吧，然后年底就恐怕同的把3届就恐怕同的给300买吧，因此提把你们提把你就勇敢心是干了，提家是좀 내지 송바기 아니 니지 준비에 라신기 아니 특바 치모 시행了편바기 라신제 투자 대반 이제 현반 로지 라신 안텔라 주고래 순지 간라 아니 특바 치모라 주고 그래 주고 준전데 가르래서나 아니 랑그 되는 담라 레와데 아니 된더라 여와리 기부지밤 기부기 자데 가르래서나 아니 현재 구도 지와들이 현재 태용 구도 지와들이 랑그 되는 사람들 와리 아니 텐저라 뭐 여바래 되게 야 안돼 주다.
And this isn't working. This thing is just it's fading in and out. It's yeah. Okay.
Do you want to try the other headphones?
I doubt it's the headphones. I think it's the amp probably. But I'll try them. I can try them. Die Japo Dokumentu.
조금 돼.
Mendo.
완전다.
Kabadi Chinchos.
그 제일 중요한. 당원성.
Omtom Yang Dong Dro Digiri. The Yuksho. So then, if we can compare then that kind of partial achievement that the Arhat gets through the practice of the lesser vehicle, which is partial in that it's only concerned with, the principal concern is with one's own benefit, that is the achievement of one's own freedom from samsara. If we can compare that with the achievement that one obtains through the practice of the greater vehicle, they're incomparable. The greater vehicle is greatly superior because it's solely concerned with benefiting others. That is, the intention, underlying intention of practicing the greater vehicle is solely absorbed in the it's like a single taste, metaphorically, of absorption in the concern in the welfare of others, in accomplishing the welfare of others. And so when we think about what is it that makes a human being a great person, it's not the achievement of their selfish self-interests. Rather, it's a really great person is someone who takes on the burden of working for the welfare of others and accomplishes the welfare of others. So similarly in the Mahayana, the greater vehicle, this single focus on the achievement of the welfare of others is what makes it superior. And also, in terms of the cause, that is, it's superior from that point of view. And then likewise, in terms of the effect that arises out of that, concern with the welfare of others, it's also infinitely superior to the result that comes from the practice of the Mahayana. From the practice of the lesser vehicle.
Oh yeah, 아니 가서래, 랑그 태안담라 레와데 아니 텐도라 요아래 스카네레서나 신도니레 자로 감주가지 추자니나 라니사 신도 공배도 추야니나 라니가 가고통 어 신도니라웨 아니 자 텐저그래서 교와래 공배 동대 잠바 추양 아니 텐저 코랑기 통과래 소수 텐제나 아니 就现在去把行业把现在人家找了看我感觉出家人了，让你咋，现在官办对不出家人了，让你搞个做系统。就现在去把行业的天你具备咋的几把人，是我打这个现在苦都去把的，俺你具备几把，具备个咋的的，现在挺苦的。
kondakin di jengimin kogimindu karesina di dra sobomindu di mena tsani sobomindu tugime.
이 가르쳐래.
I can't now.
can't.
Now it's the acoustics really are I can try. I mean, I can try that. I'm not getting any. I didn't get anything of that last.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we will need to get another answer.
这些的，这对。俺这其实，最近的哎呀。
The microphone, if you can move the table.
哦呀，电视机在这样子，不用呀，底下不动。
And then I'll try to get a better amplifier for your headphones.
가상 고도 가르쳐래. 가상 고도 들은 강제.
Re dig kasang di dates chanson.
가상 가니.
Re dates tomsom in during pet gaksha.
건규 가르쳐래. 아야다. 나는 왜 갑자기 나가 간차가. 야. 근데 가르에서는 让个团怎么了？人话得团着那样要的是，他就给看说的，你让大家把这让人，他怎么就这个没吧？现在吃过话的，就是在我们几把的，俺那现在苦都吃话的人是，让个团怎么的，俺那团着那要话的，大家这个许多年来咋了看不起，出讲年年让你杀是，신도 권배 동막 권박이 동에 초장 년 초지장去年呢 让你가시做通过来사람들就现在去把抗疫把的现在去把的俺那就早几把的大现在天去把的是
I'm really sorry. I just don't. I can't hear it at all.
고민돼
I mean, the draw shibushiyoro. So I can't. I don't. I'm not. Without the focus of the microphone, the clarity of the sound is just. It's not enough for me to get it.
거절해
Is there an adapter that I can plug into the end of this long cord that a headphone would fit into? I don't know where adapters might be. I don't know either, but I think it's
간제 남주 연구 왔네 가져 주진도 연구도 와가서 간인도 와
네, 가상 that's 촘촘 촘촘 책이래. 촘촘 드린 전에 채소.
지안라 산로마 담바 인장 오 되게 삼바데 아니 대래 아니 가소래 지안라 현대 삼바지 고고하래 인자 랑고 된 삼바데 전로라야 요아래 로我대여의 군장고라 아니 되나 뒤롱데 송과래 랑그 퇴담라래 와래 텐저라 요와 인장 신도 얘기 자로 컴가 가자 추장에 자라니 사 신도 ቋ배 동위 취향이나 라니 가고 가시 조신도 통그래 오 텐저와 텐저지가 안 돼. 아니 라니 대화 제와지 아니 텐저라 요와래 다 대래 사바 간주고 와래서나 就现在却把抗烟的，今年举办咋的几把赢是，俺你选举团的了，上了党员的，俺你举办咋么，俺你几把举办咋的是，等于咋，他让的，可，就把咱们就没做吧，俺也让的做了，俺你他现在就让他们不让他把作为全球的什么叫过来，现在过过来的，这的，是吧？
kibbutz So here then, there's a passage from the scriptures that describe the difference then. Whereas in the lesser vehicle, the person who's following that vehicle, either the shravaka or pratyeka Buddha vehicle within the lesser vehicle, because they're principally focused on their own well-being and are seeking liberation just for themselves alone. That's the primary focus of that approach. Then it's inferior to that of the greater vehicle, which takes upon the basic motivation of the greater vehicle is having the attitude of taking upon oneself the burden of relieving others' suffering and establishing others in the state of highest happiness. So that kind of difference in inferiority and superiority. There's a verses from the scriptures which say that selfishness or self-centeredness is not something specific. It's something that we can observe even in the case of animals. That is, animals are able to satisfy their hunger and their thirst. We can observe it in the case of animals that if they're hungry and they seek for food, they go about looking for food, and then when they find food, they are delighted to be able to devour it. Likewise, if they're suffering from thirst, animals go out and they look for water or something to drink, and then when they find it, they drink it and are delighted at that. So that kind of just quest for one's own happiness is not something special to humans do it, but there's nothing special about it because it's a property or a kind of attitude which is shared with the animals. So the other case of taking upon oneself the burden of helping others is something which is the sort of special superior quality of and skill which a really special kind of person can have.
Oh, then, ane randendu, ane kasore, dunga nyawara shiwi nishi toba tanje midon mishoba. Rangshenji, rangdashenji, lepa tamje chumi ne. Siba dan shiwi gupa maliwa sewara chewa ki tam me. Wa, a kaiwi jiwu tamje kandu drebi lambo che. Ane shenji tuyan drube rangi tuyan deladu, ane drub tuyagi, ane tikpa chimbola ba. 안은 바양 양다와 저 chanju의 셈제디 안에 특징은 주고 그래서 그래서 랑현지 리바 탐제 랑다 현지 리조 탐제 중이네 시바단 시바기 구반 말리바 세와체기메 와 케비 제우 탐제 강도 들어바기 람보치 특特全部给他们的看到三节一个三周吧去呗兰博去你选举团准备让个团样你选定个都选定准备让团样得了都准备你特别全部了就过来
So then this Mahayana has multiple special good qualities. That is, it has special features that distinguish it and establish its superiority over even the lesser vehicle by which one can achieve liberation. This is it is called the greater vehicle because it establishes oneself in a state in which one has the ability to affect not only your own interest, your own aims, but also all of the aims of others. You're able to accomplish all of those kinds of aims for oneself and for others both. Whereas the lesser vehicle simply accomplishes one's own aims, one's own happiness and welfare. The greater vehicle does that for both self and others. Then it's also, the Mahayana is distinguished by the fact that it's the method by which one is able to eliminate all of the various forms of faults. One can remove every form of defect from oneself by means of the Mahayana, and also one is able to perfect all of the virtues or good qualities that are possible for a person to achieve. And then it's also described as being like a great highway by which one can progress to the state of perfect awakening. And then tamadi shiba kare rangdang
시바당 시와
shiba
시바 코야 동아 시와 아니 지보 냥대 튼도냐 멤베 냥대 시다 송야게 시바당 시위 안구바 말려바 세와샤바.
So it's also the
시시탄이오데 세와샤바.
it's the method by, or it's that which pacifies or eliminates all of the problems or defects that pertained to both existence and nirvana. That is, existence, meaning like samsaric existence, has obvious defects of suffering and so forth. But nirvana also, or the self-centered nirvana, also has defects, and the Mahayana enables one to pacify or eliminate all of those defects within oneself.
그래서 오야 다 된다위 안에 가서래 연대단 단박이 안에 찬주기 셈게 받쳐봐라 안에 다 가서래 내가 찬주기 셈지 파연 전 안에 파연지 통대 가나 안에 찬주기 셈 공부를 좋아 개와 인장 나 파연레레네 시모가체 와 찬주기 셈 가서라 파연 주인의 전배 샤론도들이 파연 주셔야 말이다. 장주 선배 주나 깨지기 코에 쩌라 담배 양다는 대신 남지 세시 저자제 지단 한미제비 차제소 차제주 세리가나 아니 장주지 쌤 제만 마인 바디 깨어 주나 아니 가서래 코와는 내 샤바기 쩌라 담배 양다바지 이나양 안에 대화 시와시 대화 시비 세시 대위 세시 저기 멘토바 대신 남지 세시 저샤지 안에 지단 하다 메제바게 안에 차차비 내수 주와 어다 파연 대승 거래 가서 대위 세시 저기 멘토바 티진이 주고 셈지 셈데 개바다 대바치베 차주 쳐바다 근데 샘데 마제나 샘데 냥바나 티바치베 차는 파 튀와 주고 샘제 임바 아니 제베세 셰저이 민 제세 셰저이 민토 아니 냐라 리주권에 시지나바 아니 지된 하면 제비 차자 주세가 아니 최배 신초도 주바 야
So then in order to develop this Mahayana, this great vehicle, it's indispensable to develop bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the door by which one enters into the greater vehicle, the great vehicle. And in order to develop this bodhicitta, which is the aspiration to achieve perfect awakening for the sake of others, that mind of bodhicitta, in order to develop it, one first has to, and in order to develop it such that it's not artificial, but it's a genuine attitude within one's mind, you have this genuine attitude, you have to first recognize the benefits of having this bodhicitta. And there are multiple ways of explaining the benefits of bodhicitta. However, there's an exposition that's called the Oral Teachings of Manjushri, where there are 10 benefits of bodhicitta listed. And the first of these is that one is, when one has this bodhicitta, one is a son or daughter of the victors, that is a son or daughter of the Buddhas. And here it says that even if one is a miserable prisoner stuck in a horrible prison and undergoing intense kinds of suffering as a result of your imprisonment, then if you have this bodhicitta, you are nevertheless, even in that bad condition, you are a son or daughter of the victors. And then the second benefit of bodhicitta is that if one has bodhicitta, then no matter what one's status, what kind of condition one's life you find yourself in life, then you're someone who is worthy of being worshipped by all gods and human beings. That's the second property.
Oh yeah, 아니 사람들이 시그 초 달라도 좋아. 아니 디디니도 창와. 아니 내가 다 파제지 미주바. 아니 가서 지산비 된주바. 다 다들마 우두스 제가나 주시에 지샤요. 와 가서래. 다 된다요. 야.
그래서 초니 사파다.
사람다 이시고 초니도 좋아. 디디니도 창와. 내가 다 파제지 미줘봐. 안에 사람 잡아 니도 침봐. 지산비 된주바. 안에 데레 탐색 시체바 있나지 다 주시지 왔다. 좋아.
So there's there's additional benefits of bodhicitta, such as that it'll be very easy for one to accumulate both of the accumulations necessary to achieve Buddhahood, that is, the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of gnosis. One can quickly do that. And then likewise, one is able to easily remove all forms of suffering and any kind of faults that one possesses. One will achieve that benefit as well from having bodhicitta.
Oh yeah, that tenderly someday give a chebala. Aningela Casore. The March the Jagana, Chanju Sem give a chebala. And that was an ambo number Kirimba want to set out. Ambo no to Niki want to China Sungur, soon at the Chagana. In the Gala, Chanju Sem give a team with the Tony de Sharon on the Joker. Tea didn't any injection on the Joker in town. And you got the dead chusum said, Danny Tani Jidandi, let me change you top dinner. Let them be change you top dinner. And I learned the Toma Chanju Sem Gavago Guare, Lame Chanju Todana, Teizawa Chanju Sem. And Riwan Jabo Tadandang, so Chanju Sem Gava Tiang, and a Dambo, Riambo Rijawa Ranashin Dambadang. And it's short to be in Jadang says, what Semjan Chorism Majabi, or Sabam Mabiki, and it's some Jana Choda Dubam, Choice Tay, Sabam Mabiki, and it's some Jana Mibi, and it Dungala or Casore, Dungala Danduki, Inji Jokure. Oh, Inji Jenny, and it in Jela Casore, don't you to be shut up, Jay. Tompon Toma Inji. Nila Mada Yidan Yela, say Gana, and you don't need to be shut up. Then she and the change some care about too soon. right?
So then there's two ways or processes by which one can enter into and practice the Mahayana path. The person of sharper faculties is said to understand emptiness first, and then after having developed the understanding of selflessness, then they develop bodhicitta. However, according to the person of duller faculties or less sharp faculties, it's said, then the way it works is the opposite of that. One first develops bodhicitta and then develops the wisdom which understands the nature of things or understands selflessness or emptiness. So here in this verse, it's presenting the three factors that are necessary to, or the three roots of the Mahayana path. And in terms of, in verse 73 CD and verse 74, the second half of verse 73 and verse 74, it says, if you and the world wish to attain unexcelled awakening, its roots are bodhicitta that is as firm as the king of mountains, compassion that is as vast as space, and the wisdom that does not, that relies not on, and here it should be the two extremes. So this says, again, to repeat the verse, the commentary that we heard yesterday, it says, O king, if you yourself as well as the world, if you wish for the world, all of the sentient beings that exist within samsara in the world, if you wish them to achieve the unexcelled awakening, then it's necessary that you train yourself in the three primary causes of that, this unexcelled awakening, which is the root of unexcelled awakening, is the phenomenal bodhicitta, which is the desire to achieve awakening, unexcelled awakening for the sake of all sentient beings. And this arises from, or is accomplished by means of the four conditions, four causes, and four powers. And so this bodhicitta needs to be as stable as the king of mountains here, which is a name for Meru. And then the primary cause of that, in turn, bodhicitta itself, is the great compassion, which is the desire, and here it should be understood as a great compassion, having not just the desire that sentient beings be free from suffering, but likewise the sort of the sense of responsibility upon oneself, that one will do what is necessary to free sentient beings from their suffering. And so this kind of great compassion also is not partial in just being looking at some sentient beings or some portion of sentient beings, but rather it observes all of sentient beings that exist throughout the entire extent of the universe. And then finally, the third principal cause or chief cause of unexcelled awakening is the gnosis, which understands things free of the two extremes, and thus it's described in the verse there as not being founded upon the two extremes. So it's free from those two extremes.
Oh yeah, that and that number. 作为长久拓跋对比工作长久给sem的，大建西当就西当。 안 돕시도 세게 아니 돕시 당고 시와나 신전에 또 돕시게 나나 또 쉬어도 마 신한테 나니 대응 거다 대도 도대체 나라 수용하려 저도 주도 자외도 태도 교와 공부라 미련 받아 된중마 현지된 비섬지 셰 저도 세가나 소개위 신이게 돕았다네 제와 저도 주도 세대 가르사나 주 아니 티바침보 그랬어봐 세대 아니지 티바침비 그랬으니 이제 신부 길에끼리 갈래 티바침비 그랬어 거래 저도 주도 주도 티바침비 그랬어봐 저도 주도 자외도 세대 아니 가르사라 아니 처럼 가서 자외 또 우세가라 리게버의 제박이 아니 개자 콤바데 아니 자외 또 임바리 리게버의 제베 개자 콤바데 자외 또 저도 기도 자외 또 숨체 tö도 세데 아니 생아맘 세린디 아니 갈소래 디바치베 남지도 돼 태와 디바치베 남 태와데 아니 태도 시제 태도고와 태도세 개와 콤발레세레 개와 콤미체와니 세디 아니 디바치베 남라 태삼 제디 아니 콤바 콘네 좋아하더라 아니 콤베도 제니까라 오다 또 시권에 제가 수바티 나네 주다 진시 티니야 태고하리 야
시베디 공베톱
콤베도 세데 태와다 디바스비 너데 태와다 삼발라 아니 그와 콘네 콘도 콤바데 콤바도데
So here then, in terms of the four powers which are that actualize this this conventional bodhicitta or phenomenal bodhicitta, here it said that these four powers are explained in the ornament to the Mahayana, ornament to the Mahayana Sutras. That work of it explains the four powers. And the first of these is called the power of one's companions or friends, associates, one could say. And that refers specifically to relying upon and serving a virtuous friend. Relying upon and serving a virtuous friend is the first of these powers that enables one to develop and affect one's own phenomenal bodhicitta. And then the second of these is the cause, is called the power of the cause, and that refers to the awakening of your lineage or the it's riksepa sana. Riksepa.
Riksepa so ninji chombo chirika riksepa rik niwa ya khond peni.
So this is this refers to the awakening of one's Buddha lineage. That is, we have this lineage within us, and so from our practice of compassion, we have this it's called Buddha lineage within us, and then through the Mahayana lineage within us. Then through the development of compassion, further a practice of it, we awaken this lineage within us. Then the third is called the power of the root, and this is explained as the process of habituating oneself to meritorious kinds of activities, to the development of merit. And the development of merit is that which further expands or develops the lineage that we have within us already. Then the fourth power is called the power of habituation or conditioning oneself. And this refers to the process of hearing the teachings over and over again, listening to them, thinking about them, studying them, and meditating on them. And that in turn causes that is supported by one's engagement in meritorious activities, but these other activities of listening and so forth to the teachings serve to further expand and develop this lineage that we have.
Oh yeah. 다 주기 나네 미련 받아 땡중화 현지 땡비 섬지 셰스 주기 나네 주기 나네 당보데 미련 봐 심마 안에랑 그 퇴와다 300 콤바당 대시라 안에 가서래 저왕아마당 세디 안에 가서래 투바집에 도대 퇴와디 안에 담바인 바래 다들 대시하고 개박이 한번 들어와 오 된다베다 chanju ki sem jewa cheba la ane thoma kare gore sena ta ninje chembo ngondu je goe hasam ninje je goe hasam ge den du ninje ngondu jo goe ninje ngondu jo la ti ngondu ta 균제 명아 되게 나네 당좀 맛이 진전 안에 취소 대다기라 때네 안에 제시 파바 이동와 안에 용기 잡아대 쭉 제시 방바 이동와 저 용기 잡아대 쭉디 안에 동아진나비 샘제 탐제 안에 가서래 대화 동아다 찬적이 인제당
So then, in order to develop this bodhicitta in the way it's been described here, it's the root of this bodhicitta is the great compassion, and great compassion is the wish. And the wish that all other sentient beings be free from samsara. So based upon that wish, the desire to free all sentient beings from samsara, based upon that wish, then one develops what's called the higher intention, superior intention, which is taking upon oneself the actual responsibility to free other sentient beings from samsara. And then from that superior intention of taking the responsibility to free other sentient beings from samsara, then that itself gives rise to bodhicitta. So in reversing the process, bodhicitta comes from the superior intention, which in turn is derived from or based on the great compassion. Great compassion itself depends upon having a recognition that all other sentient beings are in a state of extreme hardship and are tormented by suffering, and then have that kind of recognition to serve as a basis for the development of great compassion. Further, it requires that one have a kind of affection towards all sentient beings, which views them with the kind of affection that like a mother has for her child, or that sort of affection. In order to have that sort of affection, then one has to recognize, first has to recognize that, or one has to wish to repay the kindness of other sentient beings based on recognition of their kindness for us. And in order to have that, one has to recognize that all sentient beings have actually been our mothers numberless times throughout the course of samsara.
Oh yeah, that is la. Jeshi pamba yido inambade ya kondo masela so tege ani lase tela jeshi pamba yido inambade chung dene dungadan dendoki dungadan dradoki injedan dewadan dendoki chambanila ngachi korim mewachen lo jonggen de kasala kasila dewade dendoki chambangala jene dungadan dradoki inje jela je 양이제 동안 단적이 인제 안라 깨네 대화다 된 그 참바 제와 제래 제와 인장 아니 어린 친구가 참바다 인제라 군대징에와 면항고 세고 대화다 된 그 참바당 동아다 단적이 인제 된 말이
So then it's necessary, of course, it's necessary then to have this attitude of viewing all sentient beings, your mother sentient beings, with this kind of great affection and concern for their welfare. One has to see them as all in that way, as dear to us and objects of our concern and affection. And then once one has that, one develops the great compassion which wishes to free them from all sentient beings from their suffering. And then also one will develop the love. Here, love is referring again to a kind of affectionate concern for others, which wishes that they should have all forms of happiness. They should be established in perfect happiness. Now, between the two, compassion and love, there's no certainty as far as the sequence in which they'll arise. That is, one necessarily has to have this special kind of affection for sentient beings in order to give rise to either love or compassion for them. But it's not it's not definitively the case that that compassion arises first and love arises second. Rather, it's possible for the opposite sequence to occur.
Oh yeah, that is it. 아니 가서래 전주 가서 동안 도대 세메장 동안이랑 원바죠 내가 대장 때문에 랑게 대화 다다 좀 전에 소하나 전에 아니 semjen 대다 대화 대장 내가 좀 메시 동안 메대장 동아지 둘라 랑게 랑게 조대 아니 랑도 콜로도 잡아 삼로 따니 아니 동아담 장적이 니제 대양 안에 동아다 잡아대 배 가서 동아다 잡아 동아다 찾나 지마로 예먹기 안에 동아다 찾적이 니제당 안에 대화단 단적이 안에 참바 맞게.
So the way one should think about sentient beings then is as it is said in the introduction to the Bodhisattva's way of conduct. There it says that these mother sentient beings, they always want happiness and they never want suffering. Yet, because of their confusion, they run to suffering and they run away from happiness. They're constantly because of their confusion and their misunderstanding of the relationship between the causes that give rise to happiness and the causes that give rise to suffering. They instead of getting the happiness that they wish, they instead end up obtaining suffering which they in fact do not wish to achieve. So if you observe sentient beings acting in that way, that they're while they actually are after happiness, they end up creating suffering for themselves. When they're trying to avoid suffering, they actually create more of it for themselves. Observing that condition of sentient beings, then one should develop the compassion which wishes for oneself to free these sentient beings from their suffering, and then the love which wishes that they should have happiness.
Oh, teacher, didn't 가서 대화단 대화지 당 아니 대화단 대화 차오 아니 동아단 차와지 차오 냥바기 안 인제다 하서 인제당 참바 대양 안에 동아단 차와데 아니 배가라 랑기 치기 냥바기 당 대화다 대화데 가라 랑기 치기 냥바기 학삼 오 텐드기 학삼 체니 오 다티니 마시네 송데 아니 학삼 대다 기주대 콘도 치발라 아니다 동아다 차와 가서래 대화다 차바 나라랑 그 채와가 채발라 랑라 니와데 매바 인장 니와술라 요아레 사나 아니 군세다 연대 꾸단데 별나나 바양다 바 조베 산제 요 콤바여 발라 시데 이니다 동아진나에 semjen탄다 동아단 자와 직체 또 채바다 대화다 담바지 채발라 랑산제 탑거와데 또와 인장 또거와 인장 인지 침보 사산 남다다 제위 지주 레바 콘도 치바 레니 semjen 탐제디 텐도 산제 톱거와 또라 자니 귤라미 타지가나라 자저름 보지 손야지 마시네 총디 니제 첨보 하산 남다다 제비 제고 지주데 아니 랑기 콘도 치발라 때네 나 sem제 탐제그 산제 톱거와 또라 세디 말이 이제 깨야
So then, the way one, observing then how sentient beings are suffering, and these dear mother sentient beings are constantly in a state of torment, either undergoing suffering or creating the cause of further suffering for themselves, then we have to observe and think about this situation that they're undergoing, and then out of that develop this special compassion which wishes that all sentient beings should be free from suffering, and then likewise this special love which is the desire that all sentient beings should have complete perfect happiness. So based upon those two attitudes, compassion and love, then one further reflects on that I ought to do that myself. I should do what I can. I should take the responsibility to free these sentient beings from their incredible sufferings. But at present, I don't have the ability. At the moment, I myself don't have the ability to free them from suffering and establish them in happiness. Therefore, then one thinks, but one nevertheless takes on the responsibility of doing this, freeing them from their suffering and establishing them in happiness. And then when one thinks that, well, who does have the ability to free sentient beings from their suffering, has all of the perfect methods that are necessary for sentient beings to be free from suffering, as well as the methods to establish them in perfect happiness, then only if one considers it carefully, one will see that only a Buddha is a person, an awakened being is a person who has both has eliminated all the faults from themselves, as well as developed all of the good qualities necessary to be able to provide all other sentient beings with the methods by which they can become free from all their suffering and established in complete, perfect happiness. So that final phase of this is itself bodhicitta, that is the wish, then recognizing that only a Buddha, an awakened being, has that capability, then one takes upon oneself the responsibility, or one develops the desire to become a Buddha so as to free all sentient beings from their suffering and establish them in perfect happiness. That itself then is the actual bodhicitta here. And as Gyaltsab Rinpoche said, Gyaltsab said in his commentary on the Uttara Tantra, he said that by understanding then how it is that bodhicitta arises from the initial recognition of all sentient beings as one's mother, and then goes through all of the various sequences of recognizing their benefit to oneself, the wish to repay their kindness, viewing them with affection and so forth, all of the different stages in terms of the sixfold causes and the effect of bodhicitta. Then one has to train oneself by first understanding the process by which bodhicitta is produced, then train oneself in that process.
Oh yeah, 다들 저와인지 전부 라삼 깨대. 동아단 차와된 안 뭐라 랑기 치고 선에 안에 쿨게 쿨게 왜 라삼데 캐니까라 다 톡거와도 또니 다 오늘 톱 뉴그레베스나 아니 톱 뉴그레베스나 아니 다 톱 뉴와 가르레스나 아니 다 토산제주 공반 토와라 년보다 시지주가 받아다 저 뽕거에 어 년보다 시지주가 받아다 저와 아니 보너스 참여해 봐 년보다 시지주가 받아다 저 보너스 참여해 봐라 아니 다 남가슴 시원하신 전이 치마 생각에 치마 로보와 이봐 치마 섬지라신라 마슈와 아니 녀몽비 치마텔라 아 섬지랑신랑 마요 코 점지기 녀보 담대 여봐 치마 생각에 새로운 봐 어디 인자 아니 치마 인생 봉女산 미니 세간라 땅다바 채와이나 인생 봉이 참아투 인생 봉이 참아투 간라 인생 봉지 그 녀보 아유 가서래 인생 그 시험에 봐 또비 돈이 또비 셔라야 봐 또 돈이 또비 셔라야 봐 하고 아래 인생 봉이 참아 돈이 또비 셔라 什么东把你带了跑，什么东把你带了跑把了带呢？俺那顶最帮你是前面出的咱把，俺那他人，你们把当实际是把归谁边给，俺那他们就去把他们是错呀多呀的，俺那当你对比切把来带呢多个有啊印章，当你扩张接吧多吧哪呢？身边他们这几天都上街托把你把这多吧嘞。
So then one thinks, once one's developed bodhicitta, or one develops this aspiration to become a Buddha, in order to do that, one has to go through the entire procedure that we've outlined above, the sequence of stages and so forth. And then one needs to, in order to do that also, one needs to think, is it possible? Is one able to actually free all sentient beings from their suffering? How could that be the case? And so in order to establish that it is in fact the case that one self can achieve Buddhahood, the awakened state, such that one can have the sort of perfect ability to free other sentient beings from their suffering and establish them in perfect happiness, one has to understand how it is that it is possible to become a Buddha, an awakened being. Now, a Buddha is an awakened being is one who has eliminated all defects from themselves. And the elimination of defects, especially here, refers to the elimination of the obscurations which are mental afflictions, as well as the obscurations which prevent omniscience. These two forms of obscurations exist within the mind, and one needs to understand or realize how it is that these obscurations exist and how they can be removed from the mind or eradicated from the mind. So the way this occurs is by, first of all, understanding that all of these obscurations are basically forms of defilement which adventitiously, temporarily exist within the mind. The mind is temporarily or adventitiously contaminated by these defilements, but the contaminants as such, defilements as such, have not entered into the actual nature of the mind. And the fact that the nature of the mind is such that the contaminants can never enter into its actual nature means that the contaminants are such, or defilements are such, that they can be removed from the mind. They're suitable to be eliminated or removed from the mind. So that being the case, then one has to understand how it is that these defilements are removable from the mind. The defilements themselves are based upon fundamentally on the misapprehension of things as being real, this misapprehension holding things to be real, existing in a way in which they do not in fact exist. So in order to establish that the defilements are removable from the mind, one has to understand further that the way in which we misapprehend things as being real is not actually the case. The way one establishes that is by establishing through valid reasoning that the way things appear is not the way they actually exist. That is, the object which is held onto or which is grasped at or misapprehended by this misapprehension of things as being real is actually purely a fiction. It doesn't exist in any way whatsoever. So through rational analysis, one can establish that this way of things appearing as real is not in fact the case because its object is non-existent. So through that kind of process of inference and the establishment of this by means of valid reasoning, then one establishes the fact of emptiness. Through the establishment of the fact of emptiness, then one, first of all, has to do this through analytical investigation. And once one has done that, then one can condition oneself to understanding things as they actually are, and eventually develop the direct realization of emptiness, which serves as the actual agent that removes the defilements from the mind.
Oh, yeah, 돈이 또디 아니 균질이 탐제야 세바 연단지 탐제 연단 탐제 용어수 조위 아니 조위 창주 참여 춥디 잠바 아니 조위 창주 참여 춥디 잠바 아니 창주 탐제 그 로직게니 아니 창주 탐제 그 로 치도 잡아 가서 점제반이 현존시리 양다 조위 창주도 치도 잡아 삼전신 동안 규당 제와라 자네 다위 치도 아니랑 도전하나 양다바 조위 산제 요컴바 건데 그 셈데 아니 게데 톱제 유대 참여 춥네 아니 토와 톰데 그로데 게데 아테 안 보는 빌로 두신 바리 아 탐제 유 참여 못주바 탐자와 미세세야데 요 인상 된다디 지보 디라타디기 뒤주고 다가 돈이 과다제와 또와 라니 sem제 탐제그로 산제 토반여바 또와 유노 된 딜라빠네 안보는 보고 타바잠 되니기 로제와 라양 아니 돈이 또방 조건도 조거와 시와 차오 제송과래 그봐 다타지나나 다타바 되니 내직세야 돼야 타르바스가 저 세만 맞주와라 아니 야 가소래 되니기로 미제바
So then here in this process, the person who's doing it this way would, instead of developing bodhicitta first, would understand how it is that the mind can be purified of all the defilements. And this process occurs through establishing that the nature of reality through inference, that is, understanding that the defilements are rooted or founded actually on this misapprehension of things as being real, the object of which is completely non-existent. This misapprehension conceives things as existing in a way in which they don't actually exist. So therefore, someone who's approaching the development of the path using someone of sharper faculties who develops the path needs to have everything established by means of inference and reasoning, needs to have it established validly through inference. They would go through the process that we've described, where they would establish that emptiness is in fact the case by means of valid forms of reasoning, and also establish that the mind can be purified completely of all the defilements through the same basic process of valid reasoning. And by establishing that the mind can be purified in that way, they show that that dimension of Buddhahood is possible. And then also showing by understanding how it is that through the development of bodhicitta, by establishing how bodhicitta is developed by means of valid reasoning, they're able to establish that bodhicitta can be developed, and that all of the good qualities that are associated with the practice of the path motivated by bodhicitta can be developed, and thus they're able to, these sharper persons are able to establish the existence of Buddhahood in that way, showing that both on the wisdom side, the emptiness can be established, on the method side, the bodhicitta and the practices can be validly established. Thus, Buddhahood as such can be established through authoritatively through valid forms of inference and reasoning. So these people, thus, they need to have all of this laid out and demonstrated through valid reasoning before they'll enter into the path in a full fashion. And this actually, with some modifications, applies even to the sharper kinds of practitioners who enter into the lesser vehicle path and are seeking liberation for themselves alone. Those sorts of practitioners will need to establish that liberation is in fact achievable, and that the understanding of emptiness is the means by which one can achieve liberation. So that applies, this procedure that is laid out for people of sharper faculties applies both to the person who is seeking liberation for themselves alone, as well as to the person who is seeking Buddhahood as well.
Oh yeah, that is and it's some nane and the Toma Ninja T.J. la and the Chesum Ganaza the Jew, Donny Dobe Dawa T.J. T.J. la and the Chanju Sem Jegoa Yenza, Umajubala Shamban Zed, Ninja Semdan, Nisu Melodan, Chanju Semne Jasan Namju, Sigana, Ninja, Nisu Meva said, Donny Dobe Sharap. T.J. la and it Chesum Ganajan to give Semje. or tesumbuji ba da tesumbuji de yong ya de la xiangban zhe de gang la da wa ta be man ju ba le jia wa dian ba pa qing ci sa du te la xiangban du de dian ba ni xia pa de du de ma gun de ji ta du man ju ba la dian bi chu ji sem jie ba tang bo ni是没比一些ji jian ba sem je ba tang ni su me bi xi jian ba se ngan la sem je ma je ga la ni su me bi xi jian ba je ti ngen du ni ji xie wong de zhuo wa我天着我的体系是为设计具出啊，是个啦，去什么的，那三节个具出啊，人家他们在呢，真的他现在就跑到的去把七节马路把吐出去把出啊，你告诉嘞，那边路路去先空都去把前面去，你这单节在，公布路路去他们。 초조 이 가슴 나 초조 이 가슴 교수님 투수치 받잖아 세대 아니야 디바주다 디바주
so shema
가서
umujukpala kasa
최종원도 좋아돼 샘제와 당보 샘제와 대응원도 니스메비 시기자바 니스메비 시원도 좋고 니스메비 시원도 니제 전원도 좋고 天朝话的提醒些比一些中于举着啊，是干了，俺们去顺波的商界拖把这个主，地点去顺波的嘞，是吧？他们这呢，他的现在就跑到是亲戚马路把土司去把去吧，是干了，他妈个现在就爬进土司去把去吧，那边那主机，先空的去把前面去，俺们你这个。 안에 단지 그 토마라 안에 디단 최수 못해 담바래 와 가서 니지 루두지 토마 초조지 가서와 토마 초조 루두인데 단이 지단디 라메 창주 톱되나 대자와 자세디 디단 최수 못해 집어채 와 대루두지 토마 초조지 가서 세가나 초람다 조람지 가서 못해 아니 교수님보다 투수 치바 자네 대제라 아니 조랑 그 내가 전에 사탕보 봐 사탕보 도디 가나 아니 셔라지 바로 집에 그 돈이 무슨도 떠봐 사탕보 도지 잡아 그래서 관리 마소 관리를 마소 말려들다 안디하고서 오만 주발에 땜비 수지 셈게바 당보 아니 셈게기 당보라 근데 라 니스메베 돈이 그 잠바 돈이 되비 시켜고 하지 니스메베 로티체 다 주시와인 바 뒤에가라 니지 shōmō ngō 좋아하지 그래서 돈이 되비 시고 ngō 니지 shōmō ngō 제고하지 셈게다 니스메베다 이세다 니지 전부 선보되라 최숨 시와레 대티시시위 이시기 규리 규와를 토만 전에 다 대토만 전에 세가나 아니 초조가 내가서 디단 최숨 보대 투스 주바 전에 되네 루르지 현 콘도 주바 차외치 어디 대송보다 투스 주바 주와서 대간데서 공부 루르지 현 콘도 주바 차외치 이제 단지 인지 단지 재지 공부 루르지 토마 초조지 가서 교수 보대 투스 주바서나 교수 보대 디단 최숨 보대 공부들이 가르쳐 단위 직단디 라면 장주 톱되나 대의자와 장주세 세대 최수보대로와 와 대당 오만 주바고 최수보대 주바 직장체
직장
장주산바고 온도 쪼게 주바 직장 기주당 가가 주바체
디 그라 심키 담보스나 디 사담보 요르베
돈이 무슨도 또 위세 아니 초조 가서 교수님 투수 치시나 초람당 조람지 가서 디단 최선보다 투수 치바 전에 아니 타르사 담보 체베제 돈이 무슨 또 위시도 그래 제라지 바로 치비 주 돈이 무슨 또 위시 또 봤음 봤다스 아니 라나메비 장주지 기조 담바 이노 다 교수님보다 라나메비 장주 또 기조 담바레스 디단 최선보다
So here then, it said that these three primary causes, which have been causes of Buddhahood, which have been enumerated up in the previous verses, that is the bodhicitta, if one desires to achieve unexcelled awakening, then one necessarily has to have the bodhicitta, which is the root of that, and it needs to be as firm as the king of mountains. Likewise, compassion, which extends to all of the reaches of the universe, and the gnosis, which does not depend upon the two. So that verse and a half then enumerates the three things which are necessary in order to achieve Buddhahood, the principal causes of Buddhahood. Bodhicitta, compassion, and this gnosis. This is expressed elsewhere, also in the introduction to the Middle Way. There, the Master Chandrakirti has extensively established these three things, the three roots of the unexcelled awakening, which have been enumerated in these verses in the precious Garland, and then likewise in the clear words, his commentary on the basic wisdom. He has taught these by referring in a summary form, by referring the reader to his own exposition of them in the introduction to the Middle Way. And then within the Prasanapada, the clear words, in the context in which he's discussing the relationship between the necessity of composing the text as well as the text itself and the subject matter and so forth, in that introductory portion of the text where he lays out the relationships among the the subject matter of the basic wisdom, the purpose of it, and so forth. Then he in that portion of the clear words, he shows how it is taught in the introduction to the middle way, that in the context of the first development of bodhicitta, or the first bodhisattva bhumi, simke tangpo sana di sadangpo yorobe, simke tangpo.
가르스나
Kaza umala jukpale tempe.
마데마르 셈게바
Simkepa.
셈 담보 데마르사 담보 많이 봐서 셈게바 담보 세나 디덴스 데셈게기 나게 셈게디체 와
군조
담보 많이 봐체
군조
아주 군조 잔주 군조 잔주 그 셈이란 말이 디덴셈게바
did sim
군조 셈게당 단다 디기 셈게세 쳐봐대서 와리 와 단다 디창 디덴 최숨 그 난간 그 셈게바 담보 와 디덴 최숨 누가 단이 직단디 라면 장주 토되나 대이 자와 장주 셈세 장주 셈데 셈제와 담보
So there, in the introduction to in the Prasana Pada, the clear words, where Master Chandrakirti is referring back to his own exposition of the relationship among and the explanation of these three prerequisites for the achievement of Buddhahood. He
인지 전부 적고래스 라인바 담보 인지 전부 제 대내 니스메베 로제 대내 아니 잔죽sem제 라인바 어디슨 거래.
So there he explains that in order to develop the Mahayana, that first one has to develop great compassion as a prerequisite, and then one develops the gnosis, which is free of the two extremes, or one develops that, and then develops actual bodhicitta. So that way, a procedure of describing the way in which the process is developed coincides with the way in which it's expressed here in the precious Garland as well.
아니 대신 시비시주 통만 전에 최순보대 초조가 나가서 깨와 나시 깨니 타르 셔러지 바로도 친지 몰로 봐 투스 치바 좋아 사대 돈용 것음도 저 좋아대 내 로변루르지 현 콘도 치바 차위 텐라비 최순보대 댄조대 로변루르지 현 콘도 치바 차위 지 자원인지 친비 권에 아니 자와시 된다 디도 집을 가서 인지 단지 제세대 단지 직단지 리지트위 단지 제제 공부 루루기 통말 초조지 가수 교수님 투수 치바잖아 단지 직단지 라면 찬지 토되나 대자와 찬지 세게 교수님보다 투수 치바잖아 소위 타르 안에서 담보 토비제 셔러지 바로 집에 동반지 대응 모습도 또바다르 라나메베 찬지 귀조 뒤에 담바리 스티커스 단지 직단디 세티커스
So then he sorry, this is complicated.
제발요 말해. 다디 제발요. 디덴 셈제당 군조 셈제 제발요 말해. 디덴 셈제대 chanju semba 공원도 줘야. 하고서 디덴 셈제 세대라. 디덴 셈제 세대 간데서 그래서나 디덴 세대 가려서나 근데 자와 우만 주바게 니지 셈다 니수 멜로당 chanju 셈니 자산 남준 유 셰기 셈제대라 디덴 셈제 시거래. 하고서
디덴 셈제.
디 셈제대 군조 셈제 맞게 권해 와래. 다나 마 로견이 로장이 아니 체도 잡아 셈제 탐제 또 탑잘라는 보양다와 소베 산제 콤바 토바 차오 냠바기 셈체바제지 게 조메 조제기 영화 마 조메기 영화 마든 비내가 될라 조제기 영화 테 조메기 영화 마든 비내가 될라 디덴 셈제레 마드 군자 셈제 생긴 바 말에 디시어티다.
So what is at issue here, or one of the points that's embedded in this discussion, is the differentiation of what is called bodhicitta as it's stated here versus the actual phenomenal bodhicitta. Phenomenal bodhicitta as such is when one has the bodhicitta, the aspiration to become a fully awakened Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, without requiring effort. That is, it's genuine bodhicitta in the sense that it's not something that one has to exert effort so as to produce it within your mind. You don't have to sort of work at it to make it arise, come up within your mind. The bodhicitta, which is called stated here, is that right? Taught here? Yeah, here. Is that right? Something like that, yeah. Dedensana.
디덴센터는 가야 봐. 디덴바스나 최적의 오마주비 최적의 감내 땜비 셈제들라 디덴셈기 시거래. 디덴은서 최적의 감들 땜비 셈제들라 디덴셈기 시거래.
Jupi chuju.
오마주박 셈제 감대마. 이 셈제대당 자와시라가 단위단위 지된디 세대기 땜바기 최수부의 주바직자래.
So where it says the bodhicitta as it is taught here, that's referring to the bodhicitta which is stated in the expression of worship at the introduction or the very beginning of the introduction to the middle way. The bodhicitta which is stated there is actually it's sort of the initial form of bodhicitta that a person develops at the very, very beginning, when one is just becoming, basically understanding what bodhicitta is, and one requires a lot of effort. You have to put forth a lot of effort just to produce this wish that oneself becomes a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So that is called artificial. It's artificial, not genuine bodhicitta. It's artificial in the sense that it requires that kind of effort for one to produce it within one's mind. It's unlike the phenomenal bodhicitta as such, is when it's no longer requiring that kind of effort, but rather it occurs without that kind of exertion for developing it. So the bodhicitta, which is referenced there in the beginning of the expression of homage or worship at the beginning of the introduction to the middle way, is the same bodhicitta mentioned in this verse here. And therefore, the way in which these three primary causes of awakening are stated here in the Ratnavali, or the Precious Garland, as well as in the Madhyamaka Avatar, or the introduction to the middle way. In both cases, the sequence in which they're expressed and the reference, what the three things are referring to is identical. So as it says here, just in the way it's taught in the introduction to the middle way, first is given the bodhicitta as such, and then the gnosis, which is not non-dual gnosis literally, but it means the gnosis which doesn't is not affected by the two extremes. And then great compassion is preceded by great compassion. That's listed here. Then it shows that, according to this, that having first produced the cause for the arising of the Tathagata's gnosis, Tathagata's gnosis meaning this non-dual gnosis. Having done that, then finally one fully comprehends the method of the perfections, the method of the perfection of wisdom, having understood that. So that's stated here in the commentary like that. And then it says that the master Nagarjuna, in order for others to comprehend this, composed the treatise out of compassion. So the treatise here is referring back to the basic wisdom that is explained in the introduction to the Middle Way, that that Master Nagarjuna composed, or actually I think it's stated in the Prasanapada, or the clear words as well, that the Master Nagarjuna composed the treatise, that is the basic wisdom, out of compassion. So that statement there shows that the Master Nagarjuna, on the occasion or within the context of the two paths of accumulation and application or preparation, in those paths, that one understands, fully comprehends the three causes mentioned above, being great bodhicitta, non-dual gnosis, as well as compassion. And then finally, at the first bhumi, la di tar sadambutse shirapki parudichin betsu.
토비제 안에 돈이 무슨 또 셰럽지 바로 집에 동반지 된 무슨 또 도바 송바다르스 사탐보토데 소조기 내가 수스도와 누르지 현 콘도 치바지 가서 누르지 토마 소조지 가서 교수 투수 치바잖아세 소조지 가기 디덴 체스 미와와 소조기 기 돈이 숨어지 디덴 디덴 체스 샤고레 디덴 체스 보텔라 가서래 자심 소지기 소조기 값이 디덴 체스 보대 아니 이 관계 디덴 소조기 값이 값이 셈 체스 미와와 체스게 나디 셈제대 셈이 천이 바래 처럼 계산와 와 이래 민자 두자가죠 내려 잡아들려 와리라 디덴 체스 보대라 아니 셈제 대라 셈제 천이바 만개 꾸저서 천이바 만개인데 다시 불엄시셔 따위 셈제 깨네 가서 조제지 영화 대 조매기 영화 마대 바대 셈제 천이바 마인바 꾸저서 천이바 마인바 체 하고서 초조기 규기 최순보디 최순그 난장기 셈제대 셈제 천이바 인바 대 디단 최순그 난장의 규위 아니 셈제 인바의 가르를 해서나 우마지비 최제디 값들 땜비 셈제 인장 그 디단 최순그 난자 셈제래 내 셈제 천이 바래
디 가서 데덴비 추숨디 속람기 녜라양 기그르베
데덴비 최라 소롱을 깨와지 와래 제가 대다 조임 조제 그 영화 조매 그 영화 마데베 가서 셈제디 디덴비 셈제래 그봐 대구조서 천이 바 만간데 디덴비 셈제인 구조 천이 바 만간데 다 초람당 조람니 그 주지 셈제디 디덴비 셈제인 구조 셈제 인간데 최적관에 대해 셈제 인자
춘주
우마지비 최적관데 디덴세데
니까 요르네 니까라 베지치기 니까라 베기 심케 대된당 춘주라
다디 제가 잡아xem 딕담바세 우마지비 최적의 감내 땜비 셈제데라 시고아레스 디데미테라 셈제 천이바 인간당 셈제 천이바 마인가 구조스 천이바 마인가지다 마인바 니와 마인바 과레스나 소제 근영화 틀라 소메 근영화 마디비 내가 그 셈제데 디덴비 셈제 예장 구조스 이제 천이바 마인체 하고서
조제이나
做这个牛
용화.
甚至了做这个三路单呢，那不样的作为三节就恐怕他们这个呀，三路单呢接，三路马单呢，냠着就干了，做这个牛通是吧？다 조미그 영화디 가라 카드 이나야 아니 나는 뭐양다 봐 저거 산제 고마 토데 셈디 줄이 여디 가나 아니 군저 셈디 챙이 받이 끼고 와래
디 초람
대토와다 초람 타와 뒤냐면
초람
조미그 영화한테 와서 초람 타와 뒤냐
So here then, what is at issue or the discussion is focusing on the differences between bodhicitta, bodhicitta as well as compassion and this knowledge or gnosis, which doesn't rely upon the two extremes. But specifically, we'll focus on bodhicitta here. That is, before one even enters the path of accumulation, here, one will have some kind of experience of bodhicitta. That is, one can, if one exerts effort, can artificially create this sort of wish to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, the definition of bodhicitta. But this experience that one has, it's metaphorically referred to as like chewing on the husk of a piece of sugar cane. One gets some slight taste of the sweetness of it, but it's nothing at all like the eating the core of sugar cane, where one gets an intense experience of the sweetness of it. So analogous to that, then, this initial experience of bodhicitta that one has prior to even entering into the path of accumulation is that which you have to artificially generate and produce with effort. Then once one has developed that and sort of conditioned or habituated yourself to it, then eventually that sort of bodhicitta aspiration to become a Buddha ceases to be something that one has to artificially exert effort to produce. It's no longer artificial, but it's genuine bodhicitta in the sense of not requiring effort to produce it. That itself is what is called the definitive or actual phenomenal bodhicitta, and the achievement of that, which arises without requiring effort, is simultaneous with the beginning of the path of accumulation. So where Master Chandrakirti has expressed in the introduction of the introduction to the middle way, that he's listed these three kinds of factors of great compassion, bodhicitta, and the non-dual gnosis that understands reality. These can be understood in both sort of the same sense that we were discussing bodhicitta. That is, there are instances of these kinds of things occurring prior to even entering into the path of accumulation. Then there's cases of having them after one has entered into the path of accumulation and the path of application or preparation. And then, of course, when one achieves the first bodhisattva stage, then on that occasion, the non-dual wisdom is a direct perception of emptiness. It's not a conceptual understanding or something of that nature.
그래서
토니
다 걸려서
시럽게 바로 준비주 토니
세라지 바로 준비수 다디는 초조기 내가서 동반 초람지 내가서 이 저람 토디 가라 돈이라미 검중톱 내내야 치가나 어느 검중 그 산나를 봐 치도 사탕부 토바나 아니 돈용 것음도 돈용 것음도 또 와다 아니 세라지 바로 준비수 세시 어때 되게 이때는 대비 세라지 바로 침바 세가나 아니 돈용 것음도 또 와 송바따 나나메베 창집지 규조 디단 칠순보데 아니 단이 지단디 남의 자주 톱도 나세 되게 흉은 되게 안또 뒤에 담바레
So then, when one, at the end of, after one has gone through the path of accumulation and the path of application, or sometimes translated as preparation, if one is looking at it from the wisdom side, during the path of accumulation, or even prior to that, one necessarily has to develop an understanding of emptiness. That is, one hears it, one thinks about it, one reflects upon it, and then once one has developed a conceptual understanding of it, one has to condition oneself to that. Then when one enters into the path of accumulation, one continues to condition oneself, habituate oneself to understanding emptiness. And then over the course of the various stages within the path of accumulation and the path of application, one eventually culminate at the end of the path of application, or sometimes called path of preparation. One arrives at the point where one, instead of understanding emptiness by means of a concept, the concept disappears, and one has a perception of emptiness through actual perception of emptiness. So that itself, that perception of emptiness, direct perception so-called, is direct perceptual understanding of emptiness is itself called the way of the perfection of wisdom. That is, perfection of wisdom here in the sense of the transcendental perfection of wisdom. So therefore, these three principal causes of unexcelled perfect awakening are expressed in summary, or in a summary form here in the verses that we've just discussed. That is where it says that if you wish for yourself and for the world to achieve unexcelled awakening, then the causes of that are bodhicitta, which is like the king of mountains, firm as the king of mountains, the compassion which reaches the end of the universe, and the gnosis which doesn't depend upon the two extremes.
장주선바그 남냠술렘바 대잖아. 안에 장선 소지기 남냠술 연수직. 장선 파박기 남냠술 연수직. 장선 소지 내가서 남냠술 연수대 오만주바기 최적가수 때바 인장 초조의 규지 최순보디 아니 오마주바기 최적 감내 땜바기 아니 인장 디단 최순세 오늘 섬지 천이 바샤고야 다 두세
So then, therefore, because it's explained in the introduction to the Middle Way, all three of these are expressed in the same terms. We can understand that is also in reference to the actual bodhicitta, the actual generation of bodhicitta, which one finds within the two paths of accumulation and application or preparation. Those two paths. Therefore, in that introduction to in the expression of homage or worship in the introduction of the Middle Way to the Middle Way, these are taught there as well.
Yeah, that's how. 부하예 도균 남다신 아주고 이당